Hello everyone, welcome back to the table. Today we're going to do construction of the Brig that comes in the base set. There are 6 of these and these go together really good, quickly, pretty simple. And I built a couple just to try it out and we're going to show you how they go together in case you were curious. Now to do that, what I've got my Tamiya extra thin cement, my X-Acto blade, my sprue cutter. I like this extra thin. I know a lot of people will have their choice of glue, but this one I like because being extra thin, it really seeps down into the gaps between the model, and that I think just helps give a nice bond. It seeps down, it thins out. It's really nice. But let's start here. So with my handy dandy sprue cutter, we're going to cut away the deck here. So we'll just grab this one, and since 2 come on here, it doesn't really matter which one you grab. You get two ships per sprue. I like this one. This hole I like better than the frigate, actually. I'll show you what they did with this hole that I thought was nice. You know, not that the other one isn't capable of being put together. It puts together fine, but this one I think actually puts together a little bit nicer. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is trim that up. There's actually only a few pieces. You've got the 3 for the hull. The masts come in one piece, but the mast on the back has a couple pieces you put, so you can put that little sail on the back. But overall, this kit is definitely a lot easier than the frigate. Now the frigate, thankfully, isn't that complicated either. I think they did a good job with their model kits. I'm just trimming off the sprue connection point. I think probably what would be better than what I do is sandpaper, and I know I mentioned that in my other video, but I still just use my X-Acto blade. I haven't taken the time to go get sandpaper. So if you want to send sandpaper to me, let me know. Alright, and we'll get this one. Yeah, if somebody wants to start a Get Eddie sandpaper for his models, let me know. And let me trim this one here. Yeah, because the problem with using the X-Acto blade is at some point you cut into the model itself. But yet, I still do it this way. You do something a certain way for so long, that's kind of how you do it. Alright, so the 2 hull pieces are trimmed, and we'll just get the little nubs off of here. Now, just in case you're new to modeling and you're asking why do you trim the nub, it helps the pieces fit together. So even if you don't get your piece perfectly cleaned, they'll still fit together better than if you rip them or tear them from the sprue and leave all the nubs. Then yeah, things don't fit together very well at all. And that's why I started using an X-Acto blade, is because I didn't have sandpaper, so I just used that. And I've gotten used to it. Still can over trim, but it's better than nothing. Okay, so what do I like about this hole? Well, one, it actually has a bottom, so I think that's kind of neat. But they've actually got some guides here to line and put the hole together, whereas on the frigate you just kind of had to, you know, put it together as best you could and hope that it fit. But with this, since it's got the little guides right there, it's kind of nice. I can actually just lay that on my work surface, grab the glue, and now that this is sitting nice and flush, it makes sure that I get a nice flush hole. And again, I just take that thin cement, and the capillary action will force that glue into the gaps of the hole there. So what I'm going to do is just make sure that I've got it lined up so that I have a nice flush on the front and flush on the back, and that looks pretty good from here. So we just give that a second. Great, and it's held together. Once that dries, this sucker's going to be nice and solid. This glue is, I like it. I mean, that's the whole idea of model glues, is that if you get a good model glue, once it fully dries, the joint is stronger than the model itself. So I've actually had some models that had run into accidents and broke, but it didn't break at the glue point, it broke around the glue point. So I thought that was interesting. Okay, so now you've actually got a whole bottom. You can grab the deck and it sits in really nice. The cannons line up great. These are really good kits, by the way. I'm very impressed with them, and they look good too. For just a few pieces, they come together really well and they look nice. So I'm going to take some drops here, down here. Again, kind of let the capillary action do the work. So I just put the glue in a couple points, and then the glue kind of spreads out. You don't have to do the entire hole. That's something I've learned with the models over the years, is you don't have to run glue along the entire seam, just in a few points, and that will hold it just fine. Sometimes I know people will run glue along the entire seam, then when it's dry they can sand that down, and sometimes, depending on your glue, that can help erase any gaps that there are. You know, so up to you. Now the front of the ship here, the bow, I'm going to run a little bit of glue. Actually, it looks like it's holding pretty good. Just from what I can see here, it's pretty tight. Sometimes I put a little bit of glue and then I hold the front there, but this one's actually stuck really good. So overall, I'd say good. Hole accomplished. Alright, so we set that off to the side. Then we're going to take the masts. That's really all that's left. So with the Brigs, there's only two masts, so the front and the back. So again, just kind of be careful how you want to remove those from the sprue, because the problem is you cut them away, because it's attached at other points, it creates stress points on your sprue and on your model piece, especially these thin masts. So after you cut off, you know, one or two sections, the piece is more free to float around, and it creates less stress on other parts of the model of the piece. So just kind of be careful when you're cutting thin parts. And then I'm going to take the X-Acto knife and trim some of the nubbins, the plastic that didn't quite come completely off. Overall, these models, what I like is there's very little flash. If you were really serious, you know, you could get in here with sandpaper and trim the sides, you know, but I don't. I had to admit that I am more of a casual hobbyist. Maybe over the years I'll get more into it, but I'm more concerned with just kind of getting out there and playing, which, you know, that might turn. I think mostly it's because I have so many games that I'm into that I haven't dedicated myself to like just one game. I know some friends that are like really into Warhammer or similar games, and that's what they do. So they truly invest a lot of time into prepping the models and painting them, and they look great, I have to admit. But I have so many games that I want to play that I haven't dedicated myself to just one yet. So all the games kind of suffer on quality, sadly. Alright, but let's trim this down a little bit. And getting clean. Nice little emery board or something would probably go in there pretty good. Okay, there was one more connection point here. Just scrape enough till it feels smooth enough. Luckily, any imperfections that you find usually gets covered up with paint, so I think this will look great after I get it all together and prime it. And there's the bottom of the mast. Alright, so that's pretty good. So that's both masts done. Now, I'm not going to glue these in, only because when I paint the ship, if the masts are glued in, it's actually hard to work around the mast and then paint just the mast the way you want. So luckily these fit in, just pop them in. Unrelated topic, if I was not going to rig these, I probably would never glue them in, because some rule sets that you might use these ships with, if your ship actually loses a mast or suffers some kind of damage, you can actually pop the mast off to represent, almost like popping a turret on a tank. But since I'm going to rig these things, the last thing I want is for them to, you know, come undone and ruin all the rigging. So I will probably glue these on later, but for now we're just going to leave them in there so I can pop them off when I paint. Alright, so we'll just move those. Alright, so there's actually just a couple more pieces left. Like I said, the brigs go a lot better. So we're gonna, this is the front. I'm not sure what you call that though. It's not a, I don't think it's a mast. It goes on the front. Some kind of bow piece with a little bit of a front sail here. So I'm gonna clip that. Now on my other sprue that I was working with, this piece here was almost broken off. Somehow when I got it, it was bent, like this piece was bent over, and right through here where it connects you could see a huge stress line. It was very close to just breaking off entirely. So I just grabbed my cement, dropped glue there, kind of bent it back into place, and then after about an hour, as it started to dry, it just, you know, got back perfect. It was great. The cement, because it melts the plastic, it was like you couldn't tell that it had been bent. Okay, trim that up. This had connection at 3 points. Let me go find the third point. It was right here on this folded sail. And again, I'm sorry if I'm not knowing the terms. It must be frustrating for people who know what these parts are to hear someone that's not familiar with the terminology talk about it. So I apologize. So if you have some tips for me or have names that I can use going forward, that's great. Alright, now what I like about this model compared to the frigate, when you put this piece in, there wasn't like a very good guide, so you had to do a lot of eyeballing. Here, there's actually a hole when you get the a hole where the hull is assembled and a part where it fits, so it actually just kind of slides right in. It's like perfect. All you gotta do is eyeball it to make sure you get it level. So I'm gonna do that real quick. That's pretty level, and then drop some glue right in there. Let the glue capillary action do its thing, and in a couple hours this is gonna be pretty solid. Alright, so the last part, now there are a couple of anchors, and I've actually been scared about putting anchors on and having them in the wrong spot. There's a bit of the ship that kind of pops out here that I think you could put the anchor under. So on one of these ships I might put anchors on, but I haven't put the anchors on anybody. And I'm going to be honest, I've looked at a lot of pictures of these ships that people put together or that's in the Warlord books. I don't see a lot of anchors being used anyway, so I'm actually not that concerned if I don't put anchors. So the last part I'm going to put on then are these back pieces that go on the back mast, and this is what that sail on the back will attach to. So again, we're just going to kind of carefully cut those with the sprue cutter here. Drop. One is smaller than the other, so the larger one goes on the bottom because that holds the bulk of the sail, and the top one is the smaller one. And again, it's got just a couple of nubs. And that's pretty smooth. And then there was one more nub here on the back. Okay, good. Get the back nub first. And then I've got a nub right up here. Excellent. Alright, so those two pieces. Now, the only reason why this is tricky is, again, no real guideline, other than if you take the sail and then hold it up against the pieces it's drawing, because the way they fit is there is just a tiny little guide on the bottom of the sail here, or the mast, and it goes on. I had it backwards. Yes, I did. So there is a little guide that it sits on. The problem is it doesn't really tell you precisely what angle all of this should be. So some of this is guesswork. So just from experience on building some of these other models, they have just eyeball it. Try to get it straight. Now what I'm going to do is put a little glue, because these are free floating otherwise, and then it's hard to kind of position it where you want. But a little bit of glue kind of helps hold it in place. That way, as you get it into its final position of straightness, the glue is holding it there. So I just kind of eyeball it. Again, if you're off a little bit, a couple feet from the gaming table, and everything looks great. Alright, that one's kind of on there. And that one is mostly level. And this other one is supposed to kind of curve up a bit. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue for it. Again, just kind of hold it in place while I position it into its final home here, to its final destination. And then line those up. I wish you could see what I'm doing here, but just trying to eyeball these things, looking down the mast. So even if they're off at an angle, as long as they're lined up on an angle, as long as I'm consistent in the inconsistency, I think it's going to be fine. And boom, we have our inconsistent consistency. Now we can, at some point when that's all dry, attach that little back sail. And that's it. Like I said, other than maybe attaching your anchors, these brigs go together really, really easily. So I'm just going to put that in there for purposes of drawing. And now you have a little brig. Once you paint that up, then you can also do some rigging. They have a little bit of rigging, not too much compared to the bigger frigates, but yeah, you can put some thread on there, tie that up. Alright, that's it. That's a brig. That went together a lot quicker than the frigate. The frigate, that video took like 40 minutes. I don't know why that one took so long, but it did. The frigate here, or the frig, other than me just rambling on at the end for no real reason, a lot quicker. So you can knock out a couple brigs in the time it takes to do a frigate. Of course, the more you do, the quicker they go. But there you have it. Thanks for tuning in. After you put together your fleet, from the main box you'll have 3 frigates and 6 brigs, and that's enough ships to get you going on some basic games. If you do play Black Seas, their rule sets are still, I'd say most games I've seen, unless they're like quote-unquote quick play rules, you can comfortably command 2 to 3 ships per person. Obviously, if you want to do a quick play rules, then yeah, you can have a whole bunch of ships and play large battles. But these are more of and another rule set I'm going to show you here soon is a little more simulation-y. And so you're comfortably running maybe with Black Seas you could run 4. I think one of the scenarios is like 4 ships per person is pretty comfortable with the tracking you have to do. So I think this is a pretty good scale to work in as far as what will fit on the table. But yeah, right now we'll be doing some Black Seas, but if you have a different naval game that you play or that you could use your little brigs in or your other ships, hey, share out your rule sets. Anyway, that's a good place to end. Thanks for watching. Bye.